Rick, I can say, is a really outstanding person, in my opinion. I mean, he basically a loving family man. He is, of course, taking care of Shannon with great diligence and love and caring since the accident. Also, he is a person that cares for others.
Before he did sales and marketing, he was a magician, so there were a lot of times that he would still volunteer and do different shows throughout town.
We had charity fundraisers in the form of magic shows. So we presented 2 magic shows a year, and of course the money collected was for charity.
Another thing he was really involved with was the Make-A-Wish Foundation, that if children had kind of one wish to see a magic show before they passed away, he would do a lot of those shows. Something that drove him to keep involved with magic and the volunteer aspect was just his passion for it and his love for it, and kind of seeing how excited the children got when he did the shows, and it was just something that kind of made him feel good about himself, and just something to be able to help others as well. Kind of watching him volunteer and his involvement with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and different charities throughout town kind of ingrained that into our family, that it was important to give back to other people.
I think Rick is one of the sweetest guys I've ever known. He would give you the shirt off his back, his underwear and socks too if you needed him. He's just a very kind and loving person.
I met Rick when I was 15 years old at a magic convention in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was one of those times of my life that, you know, you're 15, you're trying to figure out what's going on, you're a teenager, and magic to me was a really cool way to learn a hobby. I wasn't into sports, but learn a hobby that built confidence and self-esteem. I didn't know what I was going to do, and this hobby became something of a life passion. And I met Rick at one of these meetings, and he was the type of guy that was very, very personable and very likable, and people all congregated at these meetings to get to know each other. But what was unique about Rick is that he wanted to give back to magic. He wanted to give back to teaching people how to succeed at growing in this craft, this fun trait.
I met Rick when I was 13 years old, and there was something about Rick, just his magnetism, his zest for life, and his drive. And Rick became a mentor for me because I was at such a young age. So I had a lot of great mentors, Rick being one of them.
My son could have gone one of two ways. Fortunately, he was interested in magic, and Rick took extra time, brought him out to his home, taught him some magic, gave him a couple of magic tricks, and Ronnie got into magic. And at 15, he started doing shows. And I was very thankful for that influence from Rick, because, like I said, a 15-year-old son and a single mom could have gone the wrong way. Fortunately, it didn't.
You get attracted to people for values, and a lot of times in today's, values and principles aren't necessarily voiced or articulated like they were in my grandparents' age, but today it's more important. And I think that was what attracted, or was attractive or magnetic to a 13-year-old boy who came from a broken household, you know, parents divorced, and I was at that impressionable age. And had it not been for his impression at that time of my life, I don't know.
I didn't have a great relationship with my own father. I had a great relationship with friends like Rick, who were just there. Didn't try to replace my dad, but I always knew that if I needed a chalkboard, someone just to bounce off troubles at school, friendship, whatever, he would always be there for me. But I also know that there was a point in my life that I really thought, maybe I'll stick with this magic and not even go to college, not even get a degree. And I remember that my mom would have been just devastated if I didn't go to college. I remember having a conversation with Rick about that, and he said, no, your magic, your career will always be there. Don't miss out on an incredible opportunity. He looked me in the eye and he said, go to college. I mean, go get a degree, have something to fall back on. I mean, he really cared. He would call me, he would talk to me, but he was so insightful of giving me that message, that little extra push to go to college. And the unique thing about Rick is that I think that he's gone through all this before, and instead of being one of those people that just goes, well, I've done it, I really do believe that deep down he's the type of guy that wants to share and help others that he connected with over these years and make sure that they were always in the right direction.
There was a thing about Rick that always attracted to me was his clarity on purpose of what he wanted to achieve, not only in business but also in life.
He cares about what's happening. He always tries to be honest, straightforward.
A very dedicated person at the time I knew him, and since that time, over the years, I've seen that he is dedicated to work. He's very, very, shall we say, attentive to business details.
I mean, this is a man who his primary focus was on business. Like I said, very early on, that was what I loved about him, was his drive, his determination, his commitment to that. And everything that he had on business all got shifted to taking care of Shannon.
Since his wife had an accident recently here, he's really focused on doing everything he can to make sure that she's okay for the rest of her life. And I don't think he cares about anything besides her at this point in time to make sure she's taken care of.
Yeah, I had a brain injury about 2 years ago, and I was in my kitchen kind of by myself. My husband was asleep, and I just don't know, no one really knows what happened, but I guess I had fallen and hit my head, and it was pretty bad. I mean, they told my husband that I was not going to make it through the night.
They flew her to Florida Hospital, where she ended up having brain surgery. And
she had a brain bleed from a fall, and she had to have a craniectomy, which means that they had to take off part of her skull to allow for swelling. I'm a speech pathologist in an acute care rehab, inpatient rehab. So after a patient gets out of the hospital, they come to our facility for longer rehab to learn how to walk again, think again, bathe themselves. And so Shannon was in our department, and she didn't understand what had happened. And every day I would walk in and I would tell her, you know, this is why you're here, this is what we're doing. And every day I would say the same thing like I'd never said it before.
As the months went by, Rick would send me little videos of her making very small progress, walking through the halls, catching a ball.
Things I knew before my accident, like a piece of cheese, or that's pink, that's red. I could not tell you that that was red and that was pink or cheese. I actually had to learn everything over. It was really hard and tough.
She doesn't have the same ability. She has to learn everything again, like we do as children, how to navigate the world.
I've seen a little bit of a recovery from her lately, but she's still not the same girl that I knew for 20 years.
I believe that Shannon is who she is today after the accident because of Rick.
Anything that had his attention prior to the accident no longer did. She went to priority number one. So anything he had as a personal interest, work, where he lived, what he did, who his friends were, how he spent his time, all changed. And it all became her.
He really is just my whole life. I can't imagine, you know, what, yeah, he's done so much for me. I mean, he basically does everything with me, you know, and he makes sure I'm safe and everything.